We are live. This is the market update. I am your host, Bill Noble. The perfect storm. Is Bitcoin set up for a monster emotional blow off? Kind of like what happened in 2021 in the fall. Now, you could look at that on a chart and be like, well, it just kind of went up a lot. True. But the mania, like the Bored Apes, the NFTs, oh my God, the emotion at that top, absolutely epic. Is Bitcoin headed for that? And are we looking at reversals? Specifically, could Bitcoin go up a lot and then reverse? And then could the altcoin downtrend, namely the ETH avalanche, the Solana underperformance, and just about the collapse of every altcoin massively reverse itself? Because there's been two trends this year so far, right? Bitcoin up and then lurching lower, okay? And then altcoins just crash, okay? Now, is there Gann analysis pointing to those trends reversing itself? Yes. And believe it or not, there's two numbers. Gann was really into numbers. Let's keep it brief. He was into 42. Okay. So 42 months ago was this huge emotional blow off. Gann was so into 42 that he took the gazillions of dollars that he made trading the 29 crash into heavy volatility in stocks and bought himself a building. Where? At 42nd Street in New York. Believe it or not. Now, we're going to look at that and we're going to look at some news. Bottom line here is you got like a perfect storm happening coming soon. All right, let's welcome who's here. We have Lee, Ben, what's up? Java's here. Taz Pinball, Miguel, Shelly, Thomas, Crypto Scam, and Warmon. Welcome. Okay. So 100 days into the Orange Man's administration. Not exactly the party that it was during the campaign. Not exactly. And it is very clear that it is the Orange Man versus the world. Everyone's like, you want to charge tariffs? We won't ship anything. That's basically where we are right now. I don't know what happens with that. I don't know if that's a supply shock. I don't know if everybody's already ordered everything. I don't know. Most likely it's the Orange Man versus the globalist order. Or he just screwed up. Either way, I think it benefits Bitcoin. Now, Cynthia Loomis is noting that, they got rid of Operation Choke Point, which was like debanking of everyone. I don't know if they totally got rid of it, but at least on paper, it's gone. They have a crypto czar, a crypto summit. Okay. They're going to try to establish a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And they declared America will become the crypto capital of the world. Now, of course, you're like, well, that didn't exactly moon my bags. Granted, understood. But now they have to change the subject. And I've been talking about this for a couple of days. They have got to change the subject because these interviews about his first 100 days, they have not gone well, right? And if they don't have Bitcoin queued up at the end of the month for this conference in Vegas, then I don't know. They got to fire the person who's running the calendar because they got a huge inflection point to make gigantic announcements, and they may start doing it right after this payroll number coming up on Friday. We talked about that yesterday, but it is interesting that, they're starting to use crypto as a part of the first 100-day tally, even though that was more talk than action. My argument is that could change. Now, the greatest tightening shock the market has ever seen, Chinese copper stocks running out. Okay. So everyone is going to be out of everything, and it is time to reverse course. Supposedly the Chinese were buying all the copper in the world for the last 3 years, and now it's supposedly they're out. Okay, they stockpiled everything and they're out. So how is this going to play out? Well, you're going to have slower economic growth, right? You're going to have lower rates, and you're going to have a change in the fiat system. Central bank digital currencies are coming. This is a must watch. You know, anyone who thinks you don't need Bitcoin or privacy, perhaps you should think again. Okay? Perhaps you should think again. Here we go. Breaking news from the Eagle King. My next door neighbor in New Mexico becomes the first United States city to launch a strategic Bitcoin reserve. You know, New Mexico is a very pretty place, but it's not a particularly high IQ state. Like, IQs are not the highest in New Mexico. All right? And they have a strategic Bitcoin reserve. How about that? And of course, our friends in Canada, just in case you think you don't need crypto. Authoritarian speech codes, green mandates, continuing the trade war with the United States, and mass migration into the country. For what reason, I don't know. Probably to funnel them into our country. So they got rid of Trudeau, and they got more Trudeau. And if you don't think this matters, let me tell you something. It matters. Probably not elsewhere on crypto YouTube. Their money is their money. Your money is their money. And there is such a case. Like the case for a global monetary order. Okay, yeah. The tariffs, and they broke the bond market and all this Ray Dalio. Wah, 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 wah. Okay. This is the reason for the new global monetary order. It just happens to be coming along when they kind of broke the bond market or the stock market or whatever market the legacy people are whining about, right? It's like, okay, so let's go to MasterCard, stablecoins. They're afraid. Unbanked people, or even banked people, don't need to pay MasterCard fees anymore. So I don't know how they make money off the stable coins, but if they don't do stable coins, they're going to go away. Because people with and without bank accounts are going to want to use this as a method of payment. Now, I like this. The UK to collaborate with the US to produce adoption of cryptocurrency. Mention the word crypto to any UK bank and watch them close your account in minutes. Okay? Right. So they can say, oh, well, we're going to do this. Okay? We're going to do this. They're not doing it. They're not doing how does the personal freedom that associates with crypto benefit these people? It doesn't. Not the ones in power. Treasury Secretary Besson says tariff revenue will provide much needed tax relief. Okay, well, I do agree that they will need to do tax relief of some kind. However, hopefully it's not stimulus checks, because these tariffs put large industries out of business. You know, there is kind of a problematic scenario where things do break around these tariffs. They're making it sound a little bit too rosy, but they do need an excuse. They do need an excuse to get tax relief. Anybody under a certain income bracket just cannot pay taxes or they're dead, particularly if prices are going to go up on basic goods. You know, if you're going to have a one-time shock, people cannot pay taxes. Okay. So interesting rhetoric here. Interest rates are down. They're not. Mortgage rates are down. They're not. Gasoline and energy prices are down. Yeah, but not that much. I'm not seeing it. I'm seeing like a 30-cent drop. Oil went down like 20%. It's not like gas went to $1.50. And we're expecting further decreases. I don't know, boys. You're talking this book. You're going to have to change the subject. You're going to have to change the subject. Banks, fintech, and crypto are colliding. Crypto is inevitable, and the banks hate it. They hate it. That's why they're trying to pivot Congress towards stablecoins. That's why they're trying to pivot towards stablecoins, because stablecoins can act like CBDCs. They can follow what you're doing. Now, maybe a CBDC, they can't shut you off with a stablecoin like they can with a central bank digital currency, like in China. Those are nice people. You got to ask yourself, do you want to be free? Yes or no? We cover that every day. And do you want to participate in possibly a huge reversal that's literally right in front of everybody's face that no one is trading yet? Right? Gann was very into the number 5. So we have like the 5th day of the 5th month and the 5th year of the decade. Right? Gann was very into the number 5. He was very into like the 5th year of a decade. And I got some work here indicating that we could have a monster blow off top and a huge reversal starting with ETH and Solana and moving into altcoins. Because again, if we're going to have Bitcoin's going to go all the way up and then all the way down, altcoins have already gone down. So if there's a reversal that can happen, it can happen in the relative value of altcoins versus Bitcoin. Trump's 100-day speech could signal Bitcoin policy shift. Bro, you better get those orange glasses on. You better get a pair for Besant, the spokesperson, the press secretary. You better get Michael Saylor up to the White House with laser eyes. You boys better get going. Changing profile pics. Okay, so Eric confirms that they're going to be taking crypto at Trump Tower. So we got private clubs, crypto at Trump Tower, World Liberty Financial, meme coin tours of the White House. They're leaning that way. And why are they leaning that way? Well, I don't know. Why would they do all this? Why would they lean that way? That's because they're getting their bag. They have to be getting their bag positioned so that when they come out with whatever they're coming out with, like the sovereign wealth fund and all this other stuff, they're ready. Either that or they're just stupid and they're not nice people. I don't know. But, based on this Gann work, and we'll talk about later, you got to be ready, right? So here's the here's the big, gee, we don't know what we're going to do. China has 84% of the world's copper, and the world is short commodities. China is not. Okay. So, yeah, if this trade war thing gets out of control, I would assume you would have a squeeze in commodities. Okay. The thing that this is not taking into account is that China sells the commodities to get dollars, and they use the dollars to keep their currency stable. So they can sit on the commodities all they want. I don't know what happens to their currency. And they're firing generals over there. So they got instability. And I just don't know that I'm buying the apocalyptic nature of the tariff game. Just not buying it, right? Everyone's like, well, it's going to create a recession. There's no commodities. I mean, again, every day you can go and get a whole list of headlines. And I'm like, I don't think this is the way the trade's going to play out. How many people are listening to me? I don't know, but I have high conviction on this, right? Mayor of Panama City says the country is all in on Bitcoin and a strategic reserve is coming. They're watching the prosperity of El Salvador, and it's actually easier for these small countries to do it while it's still below 100. Or if they get any disturbances, say now, if you get a blow off top and then a sharp correction, that's going to give these characters like 2 opportunities to get involved, right? 2 opportunities. And then it says nothing about what can happen later on particularly if this is an extended blow off top. Like if it's a blow off top in Bitcoin and then Bitcoin doesn't necessarily come off a lot, but then altcoins go. Like altcoins. The perfect storm for Bitcoin is lightning for altcoins. Think I'm crazy? Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. All right. So we will now head over to PowerPoint. And we're going to talk about William Gann. So William Gann was, he was a technical analyst. He kind of hacked the matrix in a way, meaning, you know, he discovered all kinds of special numbers, religious texts. Yeah, he was Indiana Jones, right? He went to the Egyptian pyramids, Hindu temples. You know, he said, if you want to learn how to trade, read the Bible cover to cover 3 times. All the information you need is in there. All the numbers. I was like, wow. And then 42 also comes from that. And we'll talk about that here in a second. We have relevant research about where we are in like a larger cycle, right? Like we might be in the middle of a cycle and we might be mirroring the giant blow off top we had in 2021. Okay. I also have information on the Bitcoin halving as to what happens exactly 378 days after the halving, which, believe it or not, 378, like 42, and several other numbers are big numbers in the Gann universe. So just a brief reminder as to where we are in the world. So the tariff apocalypse, boom. We will look at monthly charts later. NASDAQ is actually up for the month as of now. So everybody got hysterical over this. The port of Los Angeles is empty. Everybody is apocalyptically negative. And the last time it was apocalyptically negative, it was fine. And this is probably equities, right? In a range. Just in a range. Now, maybe it's a big range. Maybe it's a range down here. It's a range, right? Because they don't know what to do, right? They don't know what to do. Like everyone's going like, well, buy tech. It doesn't have tariffs or whatever. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it may not be as bad as people think. And even if it is that bad, the pressure may get vented in crypto. Now, let's talk about the 378-day marker. So Gann used a lot of cycles, right? And one of the ones he used was 378 days. Now, at this 378-day mark, you'd be looking for a blow off top and then some kind of reversal. Okay? So I went back and I said, all right, let's start with the Bitcoin halving. It's a little error here, but so the halving, July 9th, 2016, May 11th, 2020, April 20th, 2024. Now, if the mathematics are correct, 378 days later, right? So 378 days after the halving in 2016 was July 2017, 22nd. The price of Bitcoin on that day was 2,600. In May of 2021, 378 days after that halving, Bitcoin was at 37K. Now, if you look over here, here's Bitcoin in July of 2017 at 2,600. And then, whoop. Okay. Here is Bitcoin in May of 2021. Now, this took longer because they had to build a base, but eventually, boom, boom. Right? So you have 2 instances where starting like a year after the halving, you started a blow off top. Sometimes it was gradually and then suddenly. But in this world where you've already broken legacy, in other words, why go through all the tariff like blah, 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 blah. You go through the tariff, blah, 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 because that could trigger the blow off top in Bitcoin, like massively. Now, let's go back over here to 42 months. Okay, that's 1,260 days. Okay, so 42 is like, again, huge number, religious texts, right? Completion and transformation, divine completion and transformation specifically. All right. Gann's own fascination with the number 42 as seen as the mammoth building on 42nd Street. Okay. Hence, he may have seen this as a turning point number. A turning point number. Now, this is where, you know, it doesn't line up perfectly necessarily, right? Okay. So 42 months ago was the blow off in October of 2017. Look at me. I'm pointing it on the screen that you can't see right over here. So it was the end, but here's how I'm looking at it. What was this sentiment back then? Right. In other words, right now, the sentiment 15 days ago, the sentiment was crypto winter. We were in crypto winter 15 days ago. And people are still not interested. Even though altcoins, I have a bid, they're holding. They had no interest. So back then, okay, there was a blow off top and there was a completion in euphoria. Now I'm starting to wonder if you can have a completion in despair. Okay, making this blow off top in price potentially much bigger. Yes, it will be a blow off top. Yes, it will be a temporary top in Bitcoin. Okay, following me? So, two things. One, 378 days after the halving, you can have a blow off top, right? That's here. Okay, that's here and here. Last two halvings. That's a big move. Now, if we're talking about completion and post-halving rallies, gee, you know, Ethereum has done nothing but go down. Just done nothing but go down, right? 378 days after the halving, right? Fifth year, the fifth year of a decade, heading into the fifth day of the fifth month, which is 3 days after the payroll number. And if we're looking for a 42 like reversal, like what does it say over here? Okay. Completion, trial, or transformation may have seen this as a turning point number. Could there be a bigger turning point than ETH? Ready? Memes. ETH, memes, base. Look at the way virtual is trading. Some of this reversal stuff could be happening right now, and no one's paying attention, and no one thinks it can be epic. I got evidence that it's epic. 378 days after a halving, you can get a blow off top started. Sometimes it's slow, but why would it be slow if all anyone wants to talk about is how the orange man broke everything? You want to talk about a reversal? You got a 13 bottom and a 9 bottom on ETH versus Bitcoin, which I bring up from time to time. Now, if you have two reasons, you have this 42-month thing and you have this 378 days after the halving thing, you have a reversal season. What bigger reversal could there be than this? And even if it's not ETH, what about Solana? Right? What about the complete change in how everyone looks at altcoins? So what if it's like a move to 120K Bitcoin, just like the massive euphoria in 2021? Because again, I can't underscore the level of euphoria. Everybody thought it was going to 100K at that top. Everybody thought it was going to 100K. And then it just stopped and rolled over. I don't see this as any different. Everyone got negative. No one is long. No one is bullish. Supply is being drained out of the market, and then all you need is either a bad employment number, a rate cut, talk of a rate cut, an announcement of anything. Any type of announcement could just ignite this whole thing. And I think people are sleeping on it. And I think people know because the market has kind of a bid, but people aren't interested because it's not spectacular. But again, think blow off and reversal. Blow off top in Bitcoin, which we've demonstrated, bottom in altcoins. Now, going back a couple of days ago, where did I put this? Okay. Going back a couple of days ago. So I was looking in the second quarter on the 22nd day of the month for a 3% up move in Bitcoin. So Bitcoin was up, was the 22nd day of the month in the second quarter. And when I published this, I was like, well, it's really catchy that, Bitcoin is usually up 3 weeks later, right? So this would be I don't know, maybe beginning of May, middle of May. Now, I know there's a lot of moves in here when Bitcoin was, small, but there are 35 and 40% moves from 2020 and 2017. You can have, you had a 30% correction in Bitcoin. Why can't you have a 30% rally? And what would cause the 30% rally? Well, I don't know. Something around this payroll number or something around the conference in Vegas. I mean, this is like pieces of analysis that I'm sort of synthesizing. So hopefully you followed some of that, but here's how I would break it down. Okay, let me just check monthly TA before I start doing that, because I didn't want to forget monthly TA. Okay. So Bitcoin monthly. Quite a nice candle, right? Lower low, right? Basically almost at the high from this prior candle. The high of this prior candle from March is just above 95K. They closed this month above 95K somehow. That would be extremely bullish. This candle unto itself is bullish because, again, lower low and then reverse higher. And this DeMark setup, I mean, you could have a blow off top last longer than 1 month with this setup. Okay. If you look at QQQ, which is funny because everyone thinks this is the end of the world. The end of the world was this 13 top up here. That was like, oh my God. And then boom, they slammed it. I'm not a big fan of Web 2, but that could be it. Maybe they hit it one more time and it's in a range. This does not necessarily look like the end of the world to me. Okay. Solana. So Solana is below that epic point on its monthly chart at 180. It's been like this. I don't know. It's been a 1 year battle at 180. Okay. They can't get it. They can't keep it above 180. They take it up to 270 and drop it. Now it's back down here again with a solid monthly candlestick. Normally I don't make too much out of any one candlestick. And these type of reversals, they're not reversals unless you get follow through. But if we're in an era, right, where you're expecting change in trend. What's the trend been in Solana? This year, it's been straight down, right? If you look at the daily chart, nothing has happened in Solana. Solana is back where it was. I don't know. Go back to the halving. Solana is back where it was at the halving. Nothing has happened in Solana. And we're talking about these grand blow-off moves kind of starting now. How is this not going up? How is this not going up? And again, people are sleeping on it, like XRP monthly. right? Normally you get the pause after the 9 top. This may have been the pause. You got the top early and then a final dip below $2. They got to come out with crypto something. Like, when is it a good time to get long the Made in America cryptos? After they've talked about it or before they've talked about it? Because they have to change the subject. They have to change the subject. Okay. All right. So going back to Bitcoin, you know, I want to talk about, again, micro strategy. No. You know what? I want to look at the monthly chart in the dollar index. Okay. So here's your monthly chart of the dollar index. Now, I've made kind of a big deal about the fact that, you know, the dollar, the DXY is on its discount zone and whatnot, but not on a monthly chart, dude. Not on a monthly chart. And you got the next support points on this are 94 and 87, and you got Lux Algo inserting resistance as the market goes down, right? A lot of people looking at gold, perhaps they should be looking at the dollar, because I know they want the dollar lower. And I know I say this every day, the fastest way to get the dollar lower is to get Bitcoin going higher. It's that simple, and it's that easy. And if he can't figure this out, right? Lutnick's going to be gone. Lutnick is going to get fired, and then he's going to go buy Bitcoin because he knows what they're going to have to do. Or everyone is just like front running what they know they're going to have to do anyway. Lutnick wants to buy, you know, the whole Trump family. These guys are all like loading up on crypto, buying World Liberty, starting clubs, whatever. What happens if the thing that moves financial markets is something good? And what happens if that occurs on the 5th day of the 5th month of the 5th year in the decade? You know, guys that use Elliott Wave, you know, there's a lot of strange stuff out there. But I mean, look at the statistics about Gann, like basically a year and change after the halving. You had 2 big blow-off tops start. And I think if you look at this like 42-month cycle, people are too bearish in ETH, and there is euphoria coming in Bitcoin. Because you've already had despair in ETH, and that has to reverse. And I don't know that you've seen real euphoria yet in Bitcoin, especially since it was crypto winter 15 days ago. 15 days ago. Yao Lopez here from Portugal. What's up? Metal Synthetics, you're welcome. Neff, what's going on? Blown Ideas, MJ Hiltz, welcome to the show. Okay, people, that is it today. Short and sweet. Think 2021. Think euphoria. Think reversals in altcoins. We'll see you tomorrow.